Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Wilson.
Good morning. Right now we have Michael Hughes from Radtke Sports, um, and we're going to be diving into your story as a collector, as a business owner, and your business as well. So, with the industry being a very large industry, what's your story? How you started in collecting memorabilia?
I think it all started when I was a little kid. Um, I joined playing baseball. My father got me into playing baseball, and the other kids on the team collected baseball cards.
Mhm.
So, obviously, I wanted to be a part of that process. So I started collecting baseball cards, and that's really kind of what got me into collecting. Was more the cards, more so than the memorabilia.
Mhm.
But when I was a kid, going to baseball games before the game and trying to get signatures from athletes on baseballs
Yeah.
was pretty much my intro into the business. So
Oh,
collecting cards really is the catalyst, and then
yeah.
memorabilia just kind of followed suit.
All right, perfect. With how did you start with cards? Can you tell me the story? How did you start with collecting cards? Who introduced you with the cards, and how did you go into the whole collecting cards process?
Yeah, so my stepdad, he collected baseball cards when he was a kid, and he was at that time in the '80s. This was the mid '80s at the time, and the junk wax era. But technically, baseball cards were really hot, and they became very desirable, and the values of them were kind of skyrocketing with the modern stars at that time period. So um, my stepdad kind of got me into it. We started going to the local card shops and buying packs of cards, and
Mhm.
chasing certain players to get I know one of the follow up questions you're going to ask me is like, what was something you were going after to
Yeah.
collect? And at that time was the '86 Donruss rookie, Jose Canseco. He was the big name. He was a 40-40 guy, that year, one of the years. So his rookie card was really desirable. So we, all of us would go and save our money from from whatever we earned it from. And then
Mhm.
I would ride my bike up to, there was a baseball card shop in Las Vegas at the time called Smokey's Baseball Card Shop. So it was right down the street from my house. So I just, Saturday morning, I'd jump on my bike, ride over there, go to the card shop, look at the cards, and buy packs of cards, hoping that I would get the '86 Donruss Jose Canseco rookie card, or
Mhm.
any of the other stars like Bobby Bonillas or the Barry Bonds or the Mark McGuires. But Jose was really the guy at the time that everybody wanted.
Awesome. Is with after getting Jose, did you get the card?
I did. I actually never
Awesome.
got it out of the pack. I got it for my birthday.
Oh,
My
cool.
or I think it was, I can't remember what birthday, maybe my 11th birthday.
Mhm.
Um, I was fortunate enough to get that card. So
Awesome. Is there any specific themes that you love collecting? Is there a specific theme that your collection is revolving into?
I used to be really into sports. I still am into sports. I like, obviously I love all the current and past athletes that, I grew up watching, but I've been more into the entertainment side of things.
Mhm.
I like I find it to be a little bit harder to attain, uh, just because, celebrities and autographs have always been synonymous, but they've never really been as, accessible. They're more accessible nowadays because I believe the money's gotten bigger.
Mhm.
But in the past, it wasn't that case. So I've kind of tailored what I've brought into my own personal collection more around like the Star Wars, the Marvel,
Mhm.
sphere of collecting. So, I love Star Wars. And my sons love Star Wars. So I've slowly accumulated some cool stuff over the years uh, into my collection.
Awesome. With your collection that you have right now, do you have a piece that doesn't have much weight in value for others, but has a strong sentimental value to you?
Yeah, I told you I referenced my stepdad.
Mhm.
He was the one that really kind of got me into, him and my teammates got me into collecting. But one of the pieces that I have is a autographed. It's just a piece of paper. It says, and it's personalized to me. It says, "To Mike, best wishes, Mickey Mantle." So
Wow.
that piece, it again, it's personalized. So obviously, it's not really, and it's just a piece of paper,
Mhm.
but it's not not something of significant value. Mickey Mantle always has value, but overall for Mickey Mantle's signature, like that's not something that's going to be super desirable. However, the reason why it's sentimental to me is, again, it was Christmas morning, and there was a actually prior to Christmas, my stepdad wrapped a present and put it under the tree, and usually as a kid you could try to figure out what's in those packages, like just by the size of the box or the weight of it, right? So
Mhm.
me and my brother could not figure this thing out, and so the morning of Christmas, we opened it up, and it was, that autograph from Mickey Mantle, and Mickey Mantle obviously is an icon of baseball. So
Mhm.
that's probably the most sentimental piece I have in my collection. I got some other stuff that I've collected that has meaning to me, but that one probably is the most significant because it's from my childhood. It doesn't have a lot of value,
Mhm.
but ultimately, it's a great memory for me.
All right, perfect. That's a nice memory for a card. We both of us started collecting with the memories first, and then it's just put it's just placed on a specific piece, and that definitely solidifies that idea. And what are your aside from that sentimental piece? How about your prize or favorite collection pieces?
I have I set up a deal. It took me a long time. I set up a deal with Harrison Ford, obviously the guy that plays Han Solo,
Mhm.
Indiana Jones, and I think he's still considered the top grossing actor of all time in Hollywood. But I have this customized blaster that's like heavy metal. I mean, it looks like what Han Solo would have had on his hip in the movies, and he used.
Wow.
The iconic piece where he's like standing there. This
Yeah.
thing is built specifically to spec of his gun. I mean, it is a exact replica, handmade, heavy metal. I think it's got a howitzer barrel on it.
Wow.
It's pretty cool, and it's signed by Harrison, and I witnessed that personally, and that's like probably my most I guess valuable slash coolest pieces that I
Mhm.
have. I have other stuff, but that's probably one of the. I would put that as a top three marquee piece, just because
Mhm.
it's just the gun itself without the signature is
Mhm.
really cool, but you add Harrison to it, it just sets it off.
Yes, definitely. What's the story in acquiring that piece? Was it really a challenge in getting it, or how did you
Yeah, Harrison
get it?
Ford is Yeah, Harrison Ford, prior, like when this deal was done, he doesn't really do a whole lot. He's, obviously doesn't need the income for signatures. So
Mhm.
to set a deal up with him is not very easy. It took me over a year to get the deal done, but when I got it done, I flew out to California and met with him and his team, and he was very pleasant, very professional. It was an honor to be in the room with him, in my opinion, just because that guy's time is very valuable. He's pulled in a lot of different directions. So for me to be able to get him to actually to that room to sign the memorabilia was a big deal, and then just the experience in and of itself, being able to talk Star Wars, Indiana Jones,
Mhm.
um, which are two of my favorite franchises in movie history. So that was why that piece, to me means something.
All right, great. And uh with that specific piece, would you be comfortable enough to share what like a ballpark figure of the value of it today?
I would probably, I'd probably put that, probably just, I'd say probably retail value between 5 and 6 thousand.
Wow.
I like I said, I have some more expensive stuff in my collection,
Hmm.
but as far as again, I never look, you never look forward to anybody uh, going to the great beyond, but
Hmm.
I know that value of that gun, and I know that there's not that many of them out there.
Hmm.
That can raise in value very significantly. And as guys get older, they tend to sign less. So as
Yes.
they tend to sign less, the value goes up from there. So,
Hmm.
like I said, it's not the most valuable piece of my collection. However, it is probably the most marquee, cool piece. Like if somebody was ever pick it up and handle it, they would understand. They would
Yeah.
understand it.
Great. And now that you mentioned it's not a valuable piece in your collection, what is your most valuable or rarest piece that you have in your collection?
Um, it's a good question. I have a Jordan graded rookie card,
Oh,
nine. So that probably, well, at 2 years ago, and during when The Last Dance came out with Michael Jordan, that card of that the value of that card was significantly higher. Cards have kind of taken a little bit of a step back recently, as well as memorabilia in regards to sales and value. But I would probably put one in my collection. Now, you obviously know I own a business, and I have a bunch of stuff in the business's collection that's probably it's more valuable than that. But personally, that's probably my one piece that I hold personally that has significant value.
Wow, that's great. That's great. So did you have any rarer piece prior, or was that the rarest that you had been carrying as a personal collection?
As a personal collection, not really. I don't, the funny thing is I'm in the business of buying and selling, so I don't really hold on to a whole lot of things. I see a lot of stuff. I handle a lot of stuff. I can tell you though, in our business collection, the business I own, we have an 8x10 signed by Rosa Parks, a civil rights icon. I have never seen another one out there that looks as good as this. And I would say that's pretty rare. As far as game used memorabilia we have, or / trophies and awards we have, we've acquired some really nice, very expensive, rare pieces. I like the Rosa Parks thing just because I like the civil rights movement. I think that in American history, it changed everything for the better. So, so my thing is, like I'd say, Rosa Parks. We do have an award called the Hancock Award that was consigned to us by the Ken Stabler family. The Hancock Award is considered the coolest award that nobody knows about, but it's a belt. It's like a belt that they used to give out to the top player, top actually athlete of that year. And so Ken Stabler won that one year, and I know Muhammad Ali had won it, and some other icons of memorabilia. So or icons of sports. So business wise, we have some really, really heavy hitting stuff that's very rare and unique. Personally, though, like I said, I'm in the business of buying and selling, so I don't really hold on to a whole lot of stuff. I really kind of hold on to more sentimental stuff, like what we talked about earlier in the interview.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that. And do you have, I believe your collections would be, since you're buying and selling, you have to maintain them like in perfect order, or at least preserving the piece as much as you can, since you want to sell it at a later time. And do you have any tips on how you would personally maintain your collection?
Yeah, I mean, you should always keep things temperature controlled. Obviously, depending on how the autograph is applied to the material, having UV protected glass on framed items so that they don't fade. Casing your items. Sometimes, if you really don't care about displaying them, vaulting them where they're completely not exposed to light. For fading purposes, that's another way of keeping your collection preserved. It's really, honestly, it's the less you handle it, the less you expose it, the better it's going to maintain itself over time. It's when you're touching, like if you have an autographed baseball, if you touch that, your fingers naturally have oil on your fingers. So when you actually touch a baseball, that oil, rubs off on your pieces. So the less you handle, the better. Putting them in plastics or protective sleeves, that's always a good case. And then you have to be careful with the protective sleeves and the quality that you purchase. You want to buy quality. If you're going to have such an expensive piece, don't be cheap on buying cheap ways to protect your pieces. Spend some money on that, because the last thing you want to have happen is you encase something and it's in something that's can possibly rub the signature or rub the piece. That could be an issue. So protecting your, keeping stuff out of light, or if you do expose it to light, putting it in a UV protected glass is paramount for protection. Trying to think of some other stuff. And as far as like when we ship items out of our business, the big thing right now are these matte finish paint items, like helmets specifically, and matte finish paint tends to rub. So what I always tell people is, bubble bag it or put a cloth around the helmet, or anything that has a matte finish paint. That way that rubbing doesn't happen to the helmet or the signature.
Awesome. Do you display your pieces at home? Like, do you have a section where you display certain pieces? Oh well, there
You
you
can see this one
go.
behind me. So I'm in the basement of my home, and I have a Hank Aaron signed jersey. I live in Atlanta, so obviously Hank Aaron is an icon of Atlanta
Mm.
baseball. In my opinion, he's still the run king. Um, so yeah, I have. If I can maybe tilt that, I got a movie.
Oh
You
wow,
know, and
wow.
I'm still kind of building out. I'm still kind of building out and decorating
Hmm.
the basement, to say the least, with some of the pieces that I've acquired over time. So it's a
Hmm.
slow process. I like to do. Um, Meaning like I want it to flow and not, I don't want the memorabilia to be overpowering in my basement in a
Yeah.
sense, like because we host people here. That's not the
Hmm.
focal point. I love displaying the memorabilia, but a lot of what I'm going to be putting up is my family and stuff, and
Yeah.
experiences that I've had with kids and athletes and entertainers.
Awesome. So I believe the ones you have displayed do have the UV protection that you mentioned.
Yes, those are UV protected glass. There are lights that are mounted above it. I rarely turn on unless I'm hosting a party to
Hmm.
display the piece. But yeah, that's those are UV protected glass frames for sure.
Awesome. Do you have a specific piece that played hard to get that it took a lot more effort for you to get it than you anticipated to exert?
Yeah, I told you about the blaster. That was a
Yeah.
challenge in of itself to set up the deal with Harrison Ford. As far as like chasing something that that took a long time for me to acquire,
Hmm.
I would say I still put that blaster up there, man. I keep coming back to that just because it was such a hard deal to get done.
Hmm.
That and then also the timing. So go back to that blaster again. Like that blaster is handmade. It's
Wow.
it's custom. So it took the guy to make that gun, I think 6 months. And so
Whoa.
6 months of making the actual gun, and
Hmm.
then getting the deal done, and then getting out there to get it signed, and then getting it
Hmm.
back safely. Like that was probably, like I said, the hardest piece I ever had to put together. Um, so it was a chase, to say the least.
I can't imagine like you wanted to have the blaster made and then you have to wait like 6 months before you have to even contact the person because the person might be available within that 6 months, but the blaster is not available and all that. Yeah,
That's
that was
exactly right.
something.
And also hoping it turns out, like, because it's handmade, hoping it turns out to spec.
Yeah,
So but the guy, like, the craftsmanship and of the piece is, it was worth the wait.
awesome. That's nice to hear. At least the wait 6 months is not a short time. So at least the wait was good.
Yes, it was.
And with your collection right now, with your personal collection, how would you like say the size of your collection is? How you describe the size of your collection?
I would say, gosh, so again, I'm, being in the business,
Hmm.
I as an owner, I have a significant, I guess, collection with the business, right? So,
Hmm.
but we buy and sell that. But my personal collection, my wife would say it's too big.
They always say it's too big.
I say, yeah, I would say, I would say overall, there's a good amount of stuff. There's more of it than I can display, if I can put
Hmm.
it that way. So if it was up to my wife, I would thin it out. But hopefully, my sons, I have three sons, I'll will it to them one day. So, and let them be able to, show off to their, family members or friends or whatever,
Hmm.
uh, what dad did in his life. So, the size of it is probably, for one person, is probably a little too much, but
Hmm.
my goal is not to keep it for myself. Obviously you can't take things with you when you leave this planet, but
Yes.
so to give it to my boys.
Awesome. That sounds great. That sounds great. I'm sure they since they already are in baseball. I'm sure they can appreciate that too.
Yeah,
Seeing.
they love it. And now they're becoming collectors too. So,
Oh.
they're seeing kind of, yeah. So they're, we've done some experiences. They're big into Pokemon. So
Yeah.
they like sports, play sports, but
Mhm.
Pokemon seems to be their main drive right now.
We siphon from Pokemon into something else after. With your experience in collecting, with your with business and all that, what would you say would be something you wish was great to know when you were starting as a personal collector?
Oh man, if you always go back in time and you know what the value of things are going to be today, where and then where they were 20, 30, 40 years ago. When I first started collecting, again, I talked about the junk wax era. So I kept a lot of my collection when I first got in this business was, 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s baseball cards, which they took a significant dive, in value, right? So it kind of, it disheartened me a little bit because everything my dad was telling me was like, hey, these cards will be worth something one day. Well, then, in the mid 2000s, you're looking at your card collection that you spent, tons of money on as a kid, and they took a huge nosedive. So, I equate the sports memorabilia, sports card collecting as somewhat like cyclical. It's kind of like the stock market. It has its ups, it has its downs. But if I can go back in time and acquire anything, it probably would have been Michael Jordan rookie cards because they were abundant. They were easy to, you could open up a box of 86 Fleer, and, pull out at least 2 to 3 probably Jordans in a box. So now, if I could go back in time, I'd have bought as many of those as I could, those boxes and put them away, put them away and safely stored them. But, you don't know, like we don't know. The one thing is you're not going to know who the next star is. There's plenty of, Tom Brady is a great example, right? He's a late round pick. Nobody knew if this guy was going to be good. And now he's considered the GOAT. So in 2000, his Bowman Chrome, rookie card. Again, if I can go back in time, I'd buy a ton of those boxes and put them away. Other autograph, I guess in the autograph side of things, Mickey Mantles and, when those guys were doing shows in the 80s, they were signing autographs for $25. I think Joe DiMaggio was the first guy that I can think of that was $100 signature, at a certain point. Ali, all those guys used to do all these shows, and it was very cheap to go meet them, to go purchase their autographs. So, nowadays it's, the modern star, you're looking at, if you want an Aaron Rodgers or a Peyton Manning or they're so much more expensive now, because the money's gotten bigger. So, and the collecting in the industry has just gotten bigger. So if I can go back in time, it'd have been to acquire probably more, the 86 Fleers, the 2000 Bowman Chromes, even purchasing some rookie cards of the former guys I would have done, but you just never know, right? You never know what's going to take off and what, take off in value and what's going to decrease in value.
Oh, excuse me. Just 1 second. Sorry about that. Something stuck in my throat.
Sorry, I know you're choked up. You're probably choked up thinking the same thing. Like I should have bought Michael Jordan rookie cards.
I remember my uncle who has, because he's a Rodman fan. When I was young, he always, back in the day, they don't care about like the pristine condition of the card, right? So as long as you have the card, they don't care if you nick the edges or anything. He just displays it at the dashboard of his car. There's like 15 Rodman cards right there. And whenever I ride his car, it's just, they're always there. He never takes them off. And if I ask one, he just gives me one.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, and the same case can be said for the guys that were buying baseball cards in the 50s and 60s. Like they put them in the spokes of the tires on their bikes.
Wow.
So, getting the, so you can hear, it sounds like, you put the baseball card in the spokes of your bike. It sounds like a motorcycle, that's what kids did, and when I was a kid before, really protecting became, protecting your collection, I would trade cards with my friends. They would always be loose. We would, I mean, I can't even remember playing poker for baseball cards, because, we look up the Beckett, if you remember the old Beckett price guides, we would look up the value of the card. They say it was $1. That was our ante, or that was our bet, if you will. So we would handle our cards like they were currency in a certain respect, but we didn't really think about the protection of them. You know what I mean? So that didn't start, that started to happen, like I said, more in the mid 80s to late 80s, where people started to like, okay, I need the binders, I need to put them in plastic, I need to protect them. So there were people that, obviously had foresight to understand that keep things pristine. I
Hmm.
wasn't one of them. And I think a lot of collectors back in the day were not. So, but there were people that, like I said, had the foresight to do that. That's why you see, these PSA 10 Mickey Mantle. I think there's maybe one or two in the world, but that shows you how rare it was for people to really protect their collection in the 50s and 60s. Like
Hmm.
it just wasn't done. That's more of a, like I said, that kind of took off in my opinion in the mid 80s.
Yeah, definitely, totally. Yeah, there wasn't like sleeves were a luxury then. Like if you have sleeves, you're something that's a rich kid because no one
Yeah.
makes sleeves
Yeah.
seriously
Yeah. You
during
just,
that time.
and that was a big part of baseball collecting that was different then than is now was trading your cards
Hmm.
and, displaying them and handling them. And
Hmm.
nowadays, like, as soon as you break a card out of, that has any value, you're sticking in a penny sleeve and putting in a plastic top loader and
Yeah.
putting it away or encasing it or slabbing it. That just wasn't done. Like
Hmm.
that, PSA, the slabbing and all that changed how things were done.
Yeah.
And now that's a huge business.
Speaking of having what we want to do back then, as an experienced collector, what are two things or two learnings that you'd like to pass on to beginner collectors?
Well, obviously, so there's three things I want to touch on here. One is if you are a pure collector, right?
Mhm.
Then obviously protecting your collection, right? But everybody now is looking at baseball cards as like a lottery ticket. So if you
Mhm.
break the 101 Joe Burrow flawless rookie card signed, that's like hitting the lottery, right? Because it could be
Mhm.
worth thousands of dollars. You know, so a lot of people look at it as a business or like a game or like a lottery. But I think you should just have fun, right?
Yeah.
Collect what you love, like, make a business out of it if you want, it's your choice. But, if you have a passion for collecting, it should just be about collecting your favorite players, your favorite stars, whether they're good or bad, right? It's just guys that mean something to you, or, a team that means something to you, or a movie that means something to you.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of, like I said, a lot of what we do nowadays is very business oriented with collecting. So my thing is, as a kid, specifically is, you know, if you take the business side out of it, have fun collecting, like, enjoy the opening of the packs and getting your stars. Like, that's really kind of what will make your collection more significant to you is
Mhm.
if you have a passion for the players, the athletes, entertainers, or whatever. That's where I see the fun and the value of collecting.
Great. Thanks
So
for
that's what I'd
those
love to pass
insights.
down to my sons.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to pass down to future generations. Just have
Mhm.
fun with it. Like, take the business side out of it and just,
Yeah.
enjoy the moment of breaking cards open with your kids and, and hopefully getting that star that you want, not
Mhm.
necessarily the star or the card that, it has the value, just enjoy it because it's fun. It's a fun business to be in. And,
Mhm.
it's a fun, a hobby, I guess to say, because this was truly a hobby. This is
Yes.
a hobby business. you know, Cards and memorabilia are not, they're not sustaining your life. It's just something that's kind of eye candy.
Mhm.
It's not toothpaste to brush your teeth, but it is fun, and it brings the value that it brings is, you know, uh, a legacy with your kids, hopefully,
Mhm.
or with family members or friends. Like that's what it should be about. That's what the roots of collecting cards and memorabilia was really about. So just have fun with it. That's what I would say.
Great. So just have fun with it. Yeah, that's a good take on it. Yeah. Um
Yeah. No,
if
and again, if you want to make
yeah.
a business out of it, then yeah, make
Mhm.
a business out of it. But ultimately, this business started just from kids, open up packs of baseball cards and collecting their favorite stars, and that's kind of like the roots of why I like to collect, why I
Mhm.
like this business.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. And if you never started collecting, what would probably be your hobby instead?
Playing baseball. I
Mhm.
still play baseball. I manage a men's league. I'm 44 years old, so
Mhm.
I've been playing baseball from a kid all the way till now.
44?
Uh, yeah, our
I thought it was
season
like
our
late
season
30s.
starts. Oh, well, I appreciate that. Yeah, yeah, I try to stay in shape. I mean, baseball and three sons kind of keeps you active. So,
Yeah.
I yeah. So chasing them around, coaching baseball. I coach baseball. I manage a men's league team. I play on a men's league team.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'd be doing. As far as my hobby, I like to hike. I like to lift weights, but baseball is truly my passion.
Oh, great. Great. So a, a sports fanatic that's really active.
Yes. I mean, I figure and that's the other thing. That's why I can appreciate the modern baseball players and also the past guys, just because I know how hard it is to play the game and succeed at it, and that's a very small percentage of people on the planet that can do things at a professional level and be paid for it. So, just having the ability to still be able to play at my age and play, I think, at a decent level, that's I'm going to try to continue that as long as I can, as long as the body holds out.
Super. Yeah, definitely. Now, and now that you have this experience in collecting, you've been an avid collector for so long, buying and selling, and you have amassed a specific collection. When you look at your collection today, what do you feel?
Like I said, I've kind of shifted gears from the sports more to the entertainment. So I feel like I'm still going to continue to acquire more entertainment stuff personally. So that part of my collection, brings, and I think the biggest part of it for me is my youngest son is a huge Star Wars kid. He just loves Star Wars, and we watched The Mandalorian, the last episode it comes out every Wednesday night, and so like I've been kind of tailoring my collection to like the Star Wars Marvel side of things. So, and what that means to me is that it creates a bond with my kids. I've even kind of gotten into Pokemon with them. I've helped get their cards graded, and we've sold some stuff for them, and some of the stuff that doesn't mean as much to them, right? So then they've been able to earn some money and be able to go out with their friends and do things, and I don't have to pay for it, right, technically. So, so that's helped on the business side. So I guess really the Pokemon and Star Wars stuff has really kind of been my focus lately, more so than sports, just because that's creating a relationship in with my kids that I didn't, is organic and is fun. And they enjoy it, which makes me enjoy it, which makes my wife enjoy it. And even other family members and friends, so we all kind of, it's a community, right? So it creates a sense of community for me. That's kind of where I've been tailoring my collection towards.
Great. Just great story about that. So now we'll be going to the business side. When you, of course, you started collecting as a kid with all the stories, with the Christmas story as a kid. When you were amassing your collection, what came first? Is it the collection or is it the business?
The collection for sure. So, I collect a lot of baseball cards up until I was about 14 years old. And then I got into high school and I started playing high school sports, and that school became my primary focus in playing sports. So I stopped collecting probably at about the age of 14. And then I got back into it. Well, not necessarily collecting it, but I got into the business, a little bit later. Probably I got into the business at 24 years old. So for 10 years, I didn't do any collecting, didn't do any, buying or selling or collecting of any kind of memorabilia at all. I was focusing on my career in school. I was getting married, I was buying a house. So I really didn't have much of a collecting spirit at that time until I got into the business, and then I started collecting again. It kind of just sucked me back in.
All right. What's the story behind Radtke? How did it came about?
Yeah.
How did it start?
So flash forward that, at 24 years old, 10 years later, I was in the hotel industry, and a gentleman, the founder of the company's name's Rick Radtke, thus the name Radtke Sports.
All right.
I was managing a hotel. I'm managing a couple hotels here in Atlanta, and we'd have celebrities come through periodically, staying at the facility. And a gentleman, Rick Radtke's wife, gave me a call and wanted to book a conference room. And she said, "Hey, we're going to be doing a private autograph signing with an athlete." And I asked who it was, and they wouldn't disclose that information. And they said it was going to be a Falcons football player. And at the time, I'm thinking to myself, like, what athlete is significant enough to where you can't tell me the name of that athlete on the Falcons roster? And when I looked at the roster, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, there's really nobody on this team that has that kind of star power other than Michael Vick. And Michael Vick at that time was like the king of Atlanta. I mean, he was the hottest guy in the NFL. You know, it was the Michael Vick experience, right? So I decided to hang out and, to see who would walk in the building. Sure enough, Michael Vick walked in the building. So to make a long story short, I helped with those events multiple times. They kept coming back and bringing Mike Vick back. And the owner of the company, Rick Radtke, offered me a job. And I remember specifically in the interview, because he told me he was in the autograph industry. And there was in the late 90s, a sting called Operation Bullpen that took down a lot of fake autographs, people that were faking autographs. And so one of the questions I told him, because I didn't really know a lot about autographs. I really didn't. I didn't collect autographs, at all. And I said to him, I said, look, man, if you're into forging signatures, I don't want to be a part of it, because the only thing I really know about autographs, there's a lot of forgeries out there. He's like, I don't do that. So I said, okay, well, I've always wanted to be in sports or give it a shot. And that was my entry point into Radtke Sports. So worked for him for approximately 4.5 years. Decided to leave the company and start my own sports company. So I started my own company called the Sports Mix, and then that was in 2008. And then 4 years later, my business partner approached me about partnering up with him, and so we partnered up. And then about a month later, after partnering up, we acquired Radtke Sports. Rick Radtke was wanting to exit the business and put the business up for sale, and my partner and I bought it out.
Oh, wow, that's an interesting story. Never heard about that story.
Yeah, so it was cool, because the company I worked for and helped grow for 4.5 years. 4 years later, I bought out. So it was pretty cool.
That's good. That's really cool. What made you decide to take over the business, to buy the business?
Well, I helped build the business, so I knew the customer base. I knew the ins and outs of, I helped create the website. I helped handle the distribution of product. I knew everything about the business because I was fully integrated. I was the vice president of marketing and sales for that company, so I was fully integrated into the business workings of the company. So, acquiring it, and understanding the business was not a challenge. Where when a lot of people buy businesses, sometimes they don't really know what the business entails. They take a risk. Yes, this was taking a risk, but I think the risk was mitigated by the sense of understanding the book of business, the business flow, and the operations and everything behind it. So I wouldn't say it was an easy transition, but it was an easier transition than me going from the hotel industry into technology, for instance. I already knew what the business, what kind of revenues can be generated and how to run the operation. So it was a fairly easy transition. Moving the inventory was not, and inventorying it all was not. But aside from that, taking over the business was not a significant challenge, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely a logical decision there. There's a little adjustment since you're already running the whole most of the thing already.
It'd be like Wilson Sportswear going from jerseys into probably into socks or other apparel. You have a good idea of some of the manufacturers and all that kind of stuff and who does what. So it's very similar.
All right. Thanks for that example. Just for the record, what items are being offered at Radtke right now?
Oh gosh, we have, I think, probably over 10,000 different SKUs, unique items. So, anything from football helmets, which is a big part of that's really a big part of our, which you've seen, is a big part of our inventory. But we have everything, from MMA to soccer, to entertainment, to NBA, to baseball. We have, cards. We have a little bit of everything. I think Radtke really kind of prides itself on trying to be a one-stop shop for the collector. Can we acquire everything? No. But we have a good smattering of just about, we touch into a lot of different areas of memorabilia that we can, probably provide a piece that you would like.
All right. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I did see the warehouse. it's a lot of inventory that you have, and definitely when whatever someone wants, for sure it's there.
Yeah.
And with managing the business, what would you say would be your top philosophies in the business?
Well, I actually heard a former defensive coordinator, just speak to my son's school 3 days ago. That's why I couldn't meet with you on Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
There was something that he said that was very poignant. If you're going to manage or own a business, have a passion for it, because then it doesn't feel like you're working. It feels like yes, you're working, but at the same time, like you have a passion for it. So you're going to bring a different kind of energy to the table if you love what you do. And I don't feel like I really work. Yes, there are days where, they're harder than others, but overall I love what I do. And, so it doesn't feel like work to me. Like I said, it's, if you're going to start a business, if you're going to go into something, I believe that the success that comes from that is your passion for it and how much energy you bring to the table. And if you love what you're doing, more than likely your business is successful because you have a passion for it. And you have to have business sense. Obviously you have to be able to manage things, but overall, if you love what you do, if you love what you're doing, you're going to have an easier time managing that because you love it, as opposed to like dreading walking in.
Yeah,
So
super.
that's my philosophy. And also, the other thing too is, that's one of my philosophies, but the other thing is to treat the people around you, well, treat the, customers, your vendors, your word is everything you got, so, if you're a guy that, doesn't pay your bills, or, you're a guy that's dishonest, that's going to show its light at some point and you won't succeed. So, be good to the people, not just your employees, but be good to the people that helped bring you to the success that you've had, because those are the guys that helped you rise up. It's not all about you. It's, the only reason Radtke is a business is because of the people that helped bring the business to where it is today. So that's important, take care of the people that take care of you.
Wow. Great philosophies. Yeah, it's good to hear that from you. With now that you mentioned that there are days where it does feel like work, moving to that thought, what is the craziest request that you've got in the business?
There's been so many. A lot of times, craziest request really, that this question, when I was previewing it, was like hard for me to kind of like figure out what would be the craziest one.
Really, the
Oh my
first
gosh, I've
one that
had
just
people
springs to
ask me if
mind.
I know I've had people ask me if they can fly to an event that's totally private. And they've tried to, I've had people like kind of camp out and hoping that they can meet an athlete,
Wow.
so I wouldn't say it's a request technically. I guess it is a request. I don't know how you find that, but I've had, people stock in the parking lot knowing if an athlete's going to come in and
Yeah.
try to meet the athlete and get a free signature or just even shake their. So that I've had people ask to sign things that are, I wouldn't say kosher, to say the least. For instance, like I've had people try to sign photos of athletes or entertainers that probably should never get into the equation.
Okay.
So, things like that, I guess, are, what I've seen the most. But nothing too crazy, just more people trying to push the envelope of, trying to, like I said, camp out or send something in that is not approved or would never be approved, but they try to push the limit. So that's probably it in my, overall.
Oh, that's a fair share of crazy.
It is the camping out, is pretty crazy. I was at a public event with Brett Favre, and you get a lot of strange people coming through the line sometimes that kind of linger a little too long and
Yeah.
act a little weird, and those things can make the athlete and me uncomfortable. So kind of moving those people along is not always easy, but you have to do it for sometimes personal safety reasons or the athlete's safety reasons. So it's not really necessarily, like I said, the request. It's the non-request, and then things getting awkward. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I fully understand that. That's reasonable. That's reasonable. And A while ago, we talked about the rarest item that you have carried, your rookie Jordan card. Now, what is the rarest item that the business has carried?
No, I brought that up, the Hancock Award, the Ken Stabler Hancock Award, which is like a one of a one type
Mhm.
award that's given out to the top athlete year over year. You should look it up. It's called the Hancock Award,
Okay.
and you'll see kind of what that award is. It's they call it the coolest award nobody's ever heard of,
Hmm.
but it is a belt. It's a belt that has jewels on it, diamonds. It's gold. It's really rare, very unique.
Hmm.
But that's one of the coolest items I've ever seen out there. We have some other like awards that we've been given by players to sell at certain points. So we have some really rare, unique stuff that we'll probably put out in the marketplace at some certain points. It just
Hmm.
depends on when the athlete proves it and, kind of like getting a value on it. It's hard to get value on things that are one-on-ones and unique.
All right, makes sense. That makes sense. I'll search on that Stabler Award.
Hancock Award.
Oh, sorry, Hancock. It's by Stabler, right?
It's not by Ken. It was given to Ken Stabler. The Hancock
Okay.
company is a belt company, would give this specific belt out
Mhm.
to the top athlete of that year.
All right. Okay. Stabler Award. I'll take a
Now,
note.
take a look at it. Like I said, it's the coolest. It's the coolest award nobody's ever heard of. That's what they
just,
dub it.
just the tagline makes me curious. Coolest award that nobody ever.
Yeah.
And speaking of players, um, is there which play without naming any names? I'm sure. Which player did you work with that was memorable and why?
Good or bad? Are you
Um,
saying in a good way or a bad
let's have one good and one bad without mentioning any names.
way?
If you want to
I had
mention,
the
that's fine
privilege to
too.
work with Bart Starr. Yeah, sure. I had the privilege of working with Bart Starr before he passed away, the Super Bowl one and
Mhm.
two quarterback. He was player in the Ice Bowl. He was a Green Bay Packer
Mhm.
quarterback. Probably one of the nicest men you'd ever meet. Very genuine. He just a salt of the earth kind of guy. Very humble. Just a very great guy to be around. Beautiful penmanship. His signatures were always just spot on.
Mhm.
Took his time, told great stories about the Ice Bowl that he played in, and some of the coaches that he like Vince Lombardi that he was coached under. He also went to Alabama, so he was with Bear Bryant. So you get these guys that come through that you meet, and then they try to form a personal connection with you. And Bart was one of those guys that no matter who was in the room, he was going to shake your hand, give you a big smile, probably tell you a good story, and then on top of it, give you a great signature to add to your collection. And his significant football. The crazy thing is when you think about collecting nowadays, everybody wants the current modern star,
Mhm.
right? Like we hold this value for guys that have really never even produced anything on the field really yet, right? So Bart Starr was not that guy. He produced in every single category of his life, whether it was football, charity, just goodwill in general. So he's probably the most memorable guy I've ever met. There's been so many nice
Mhm.
guys that I've met. Dale Murphy's another one of them. But Bart, as a human being, was
Mhm.
an exceptional man. So he's probably the most memorable for me. I won't put the name out for the.
Yeah.
I've been around a lot of guys that were not happy to be in the room, to say the least.
Yeah.
And that can really change, like that can really change, what you think of an athlete or an entertainer. But I usually give people two shots. Like
Mhm.
if sometimes you just catch a guy on a bad day, right? So
Yeah.
I usually, if I get the opportunity to be around an athlete more or an entertainer more than once, like maybe they had a bad day, if the second time, they're great, then it changes the whole situation. You
Mhm.
just never know what anybody's dealing with in life at that time to really get a fair assessment one time. A lot of times we judge people based on a first impression.
Mhm.
I don't live that way. I give people, I believe in forgiveness. And so if they weren't really cool the first time, or they were mean, or they just weren't, they weren't on point, I guess, to say the least.
Mhm.
If I get the opportunity to meet them a second time, that's kind of when I'll evaluate it,
Yeah.
and say, okay, well, that guy's, he's consistently a mean guy, so, um, you know, so overall, like Bart Starr's number one. I won't put any other names in the equation for the
Mm-hmm.
the guys that were not very memorable to say the least. But to be fair, like I've been around guys that were not very pleasant the first time, but the second time was like a whole new person. So
Mm-hmm.
never. One thing I've learned about this business: never judge a book by its cover, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Because some guys that you think are going to be really really mean just because they portrayed that on the field or on TV, they're like the nicest guys in person. So
Mm-hmm.
you just never know.
Yeah. And can you tell us more of like the situation, how like or a situation or a tricky situation where a player was a little bit demanding, or how did they earn the right for you not to like them in this to be not for you not to like being in the same room with them?
Yeah, like I said, I won't tell you the player's name, but
Mm-hmm.
there's a guy that signs, frequently that is extremely demanding of how the items need to be placed,
Mm-hmm.
the flow of how things are going to go, and that might be a characteristic of being OCD, but it's a little over the top, and uh, they're grumpy during the signing. They don't talk nice to people, or if they talk to you at all. They the demanding aspect of trying to assembly line the pieces and whatnot. When you're spending a lot of money on a business front, thousands of dollars for a guy to apply a signature. I'm not asking technically for an experience from the athlete, but just the respect of understanding, like we're trying to protect the signature and how it's applied. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes certain athletes don't respect that. They just want to get in and get out as quick as possible, and they give you a crap signature. They make you move stuff around that's unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of things that take away from the overall business deal, to say the least. And
Mm-hmm.
it's consistent with certain athletes. Like you just know going into it, like this guy's going to be over demanding.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably not going to be very rational, and he's probably not going to be very nice to you. So it's just pure business, and it's in and out, and it's they make you feel fortunate that they're even in the room, even though that you're paying them for their time. It still feels like uh, you're lucky to be in my presence, to say the
Mm-hmm.
least. Which that takes away from the whole collecting, the whole acquiring, the whole business side of it. Just it makes it not a very pleasant experience.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, it sheds a different light suddenly on the player that you see this guy
Absolutely,
on
and
TV,
they're yep.
and
And
then suddenly
and
it's
that's the
different.
funny thing is like then you see him on TV and they play this like really nice,
Mm-hmm.
funny, whatever, and then him in person and it's just like, where's the guy that's on TV that portrays that? So,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah.
so
Speaking of difficult players, what are the top three challenges that you have faced in the business? Something that you would immediately think about on top of your head.
yeah, so a big challenge in our business really is like, when you invest in a current player
Mhm.
specifically, let's say it's uh I'll give you a good example. Henry Ruggs, right? So Henry Ruggs, uh, out of Alabama, top receiver, went to the Las Vegas Raiders, uh, was driving drunk and killed somebody. The memorabilia that we acquired,
Mhm.
then the guy's now in prison. That memorabilia that you acquired is now pretty much worthless to the collector, um, because obviously because of the record that just was established by that athlete, right?
Mhm.
So could be a phenomenal athlete, but um, if he taints his legacy, then the collectability of that and the value of that plummets significantly. So
Mhm.
ultimately, when you invest and you're in business, a big challenge is those kind of things that occur, and then also traded. Like when players are traded,
Mhm.
a lot of the value of just acquired goes down significantly. So you can take one of the things that people learn when they try to get into this industry is how hard it is to maintain a good inventory of players and move it
Mhm.
consistently before players are traded, before something like that occurs with Henry. You can never really know what's going to happen. So
Mhm.
it stinks like when you have 10 play like when the trade deadline comes out for the NFL, there's going to be a bunch of players that are traded that I've acquired memorabilia on, that I have significant dollars in, that I have to figure out now how to move. And that's a challenge. That's a big challenge because, these helmets that we buy or the jerseys that we buy, and then the signatures applied all adds the cost.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you do let's say a $50,000 deal in signatures, and then you're applying another $50K in just the raw product. Now the player's traded, or he, what I just said, he kills somebody.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden now your $100K that you invested is now maybe worth a quarter of that, maybe. So that's a huge challenge. When it comes to investing in the current modern player, guys that have legacies, they tend to be safer. Hall of Famers, they can still mess up, but for some reason with the Hall of Fame established career, there's still value there. Like for instance, OJ, people still collect OJ. He was a Heisman winner. Obviously the whole his legacy has been tainted, but people still collect him because he already created that legacy. Guys that are current though have not created that resume. They're a bigger risk. So evaluating who to do deals with, character means something. So if a guy's got a checkered past in college, or even in high school, and then he's coming in the NFL, you might want to be kind of weary of, do I really want to put a lot of money in this guy? Even if he's going to be a superstar, you might want to think about it, because Antonio Brown, you can think of so many different guys that, have all this talent, and then they tarnish their reputation, and it becomes hard to invest in them, so, or if you've invested in them, then you're taking losses.
All right. That's quite the challenge indeed. Since you mentioned about moving inventory fast, how can you say what's Radtke's way of precaution in making sure that clients receive their items in great conditions?
Yeah, so I talked about the helmets earlier, the matte finish helmets. So, we try to, we apply we QC everything that goes out of the door. So, and as it comes in the door. So as we acquire products, so let's say we ship some stuff off to be signed by Tom Brady, and we get that product back, we break it all out, we visually inspect it. We visually inspect every single item, not just the signature, but the actual quality of the helmet or jersey or mini helmet or whatever, football, to make sure that's in good condition. Then we look at the signature and make sure that that's in good condition. Then if it's our authentication, we make sure we authenticate the item. But if it's another company's authentication, we try to check that authentication to make sure it's already authenticated properly before we sell it to the customer. So then as we sell it to the customer, before it goes out the door, we QC it again. We quality check it again. We make sure that, because it was great coming into the building, if it was mishandled being put on the shelf, something could have occurred. So we'll break it out again. We visually inspect it. We check the authentication one more time, and then we'll protect that. We'll protect that item either with like bubble wrap or padding or whatever. It depends on the piece, right? So if it's a helmet, it's going to be protected one way. If it's a frame, it's going to be protected a different way. So we take we've learned, over the course of doing of this business, you learn what can occur. So we take preventative care to make sure that, hey, things are properly packaged to ship out the door to the customers. They get a nice quality item. We can't prevent everything that's ever going to happen. UPS can mishandle things, or FedEx or whoever. But that's why you have insurance on those items. If a damage does occur that's outside of our control, we can properly reimburse the customer, and then hopefully reimburse ourselves for the damages that take place.
All right. Wow, that's a very tedious and very reassuring process that you mentioned there.
Well, think about this, Wilson. If you're going to spend, let's say you're a collector and you're going to spend $700 to $1,000 on an item, and you get it and it's messed up, that's going to come back to me regardless, right? So you have to take those precautions, because you're talking about people spending hard-earned money on a collectible, and these are not, most of the stuff's not cheap. It's not like you're buying some screws from Home Depot. You're buying, something that costs well above that. So you have to take those precautions.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, if I'm going to be buying thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars worth of item, that's a reassuring part that's a lot of checks that are happening in your processes. That's very good. That's very good. And now that you're mentioning about different checks, what makes you unique in your domain, in your industry? What makes you stand out among others?
I think, well, one of the things that we just did was we upped our authentication significantly. So we partnered with Emmett Smith in regards to how we authenticate our items. So
Mhm.
what we've went to is an NFC chip driven authentication
Wow. Okay.
to where, I don't know if you know this, but your iPhone or Android device has what they call an NFC reader embedded in it.
Hmm.
So that NFC reader on your phone can actually scan one of our authentication tags or
Hmm.
holograms, if you will, and we'll pull up the when, where, who signed it, what the item is, if it has an inscription. And also, we've improved the application to where we'll also provide a proof picture from the signing, as well as the picture of the exact item that you're going to receive.
Hmm.
So what that means is when you scan that, you take your iPhone and you run it against the piece,
Hmm.
the hologram. It's going to pull up all that data on your phone. So and the chips cannot be duplicated. Again, I brought up the forgery thing earlier in this
Hmm.
discussion. People can replicate stickers that go on the back of that authenticate these pieces that are in the marketplace.
Hmm.
So, meaning, you know, if you have a really good printer, you can print a sticker that looks like any other sticker on the planet. So, what we've done is we went to a microchip driven system to prevent that from ever occurring again. So that I think is going to really set us apart. That's new, that's fresh, that's something that we're educating the masses currently that I'm working
Hmm.
on. I also believe that the people inside my company also make us stand out. We ship and deliver quickly.
Hmm.
If you order something from Radtke, you're going to get it really quickly, and you're
Hmm.
going to get a quality piece. Like you're not going to get some, beat up whatever. So our company prides itself in expediency, efficiency, authentication, and then also being a one-stop shop. Like I told you, like
Hmm.
being able to
Yeah.
offer a very wide array of products for the collector, for the store owner that wants to resell our products. We
Hmm.
have that. We have that. We have the inventory to be able to maintain that.
All right, great. Thank you for that. And with this business being very competitive, what drives you? What makes you bring your A game every day?
I told you earlier, man, it's the passion for the business. Like it's being in sports and being around competitive people pushes me. I'm like I said, I play baseball.
Hmm.
I love the competition of baseball, the camaraderie, being a part of a team. And sports is that, and this business is that. And so when I look at my staff and I look at the people that are in my building, they're competitive people as well. And so my partner's competitive. Me and him compete, to try to get deals done and try
Hmm.
to, acquire new customers and new vendors. So he pushes me, I push him. My staff pushes me, but it's really what pushes me is the passion for this business, and the passion for, getting a deal done and,
Hmm.
saying, hey, Radke brought, Harrison Ford to the table, and we got some great new product that's never been released before. I love being first to market with stuff.
Hmm.
It's cool. It's fun coming up with unique products, that have never been done before.
Yeah.
That's fulfilling to me, So it's the creation of goods and services that never have been out there. That's a unique business to be in.
Hmm.
It's fun, and I get to go to a lot of great events and see a lot of cool things, and that's just a product of being in this business that just is an ancillary byproduct of just being in sports and entertainment.
Just like the NFC tags, you're gonna be the first one. That's the first time I heard about that.
Well, again, we Emmett Smith has had the technology for a long time. We partnered with him just to, you know, we partnered with him because we wanted to really get it to the masses and expose how great this technology is. So,
Hmm.
I think it's going to change how things are done.
Great. Yeah, definitely. And now, what would you say would be your defining moment as a businessman and as a collector?
I think the defining moment in business was when we acquired Radke Sports, like that kind of that just that pivotal moment in my life of, okay, now a company I worked for, I now own, and now have to, how am I going to grow this,
Mhm.
and I think I've been successful at doing so, along with the people, that have helped me get there along the way, including my business partner and the staff that I've had. Um, that has been a very pivotal moment in my life. It changed the trajectory of what I was doing, holistically,
Mhm.
and how I just look at life in general of, what does it take to continue to succeed? As far as collecting is concerned, I think a pivotal moment for me, was getting back into the business and kind of seeing like, wow, there is a lot of this industry is a lot bigger than I thought. And,
Mhm.
I need to be a part of it. I need to involve myself, indulge myself in this collecting atmosphere so I can really understand the gravity of what significance this brings to the collector. So those have been, some pivotal, that pivotal moment of taking over the company was probably number one for me.
Mhm. All right, great. Thank you. We talked about earlier that if you're not a collector, you'll be most likely in playing baseball. That would be your hobby. And how about if you did not start the business? What else would you be doing instead?
Well, like I said, I was in the hotel industry. So when I graduated college at the University of Missouri, with a degree in hotel and restaurant management with an emphasis in economics. So I thought I was going to own hotels one day. That's something I was thinking about doing. Is figuring out a way to one day either have a franchised hotel or
Mhm.
build my own. So I'd probably be in the hospitality industry more than
Mhm.
likely, in some form or fashion. I don't know what that would be. Before, I've been in different roles in that industry. So that's probably where I would be, somewhere in that sphere
Mhm.
of business.
All right, thank you for that. Look at us. I'm also from the hospitality area, and then now we're in the sports area.
Yeah. I mean, I think that also has been good for me. I managed hotels. I was around a lot of people and establishing relationships, and
Mhm.
and when you're in the service industry, you realize really quick, it's the small things that make people happy,
Mhm.
and if you can deliver on those small things, like it grows into bigger things. It grows
Mhm.
into relationships. Like I said, like that's how I got into sports, is because I did the small things right with Rick
Mhm.
Radtke and Michael Vick, that it led me into this business because I took care of them, and next thing you know, I was offered a job. So
Mhm.
if you deliver, like I said, your reputation means a lot. It's pretty much all you have, in
Yeah.
regards to business. And if you have a good reputation, people want to work with you. They want to be around you. They
Mhm.
want to partner with you. They want to figure out ways to do business together. So, um, that's pretty much, that's it in a nutshell for me.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Super. That's super. And before we end the session, um, talking to people who want to start a collection, what would be your opinion should be the first step that they should do in the first phase of starting a
Again,
collection?
yeah, I touched on this earlier. Like, collect what you love, right? So
Mhm.
if it's Pokemon, collect Pokemon, right?
Mhm.
I think that if you love what you're collecting, that's going to be the start, right?
Mhm.
And if you want to turn that into a business after that, then do that. But really, if you're going to start collecting, start buying the stuff that you think is valuable to you and something you're
Mhm.
proud to display, something that you can talk about with your kids, your friends, your community. Um, and as that grows, you could, like I said, you could turn into a business, or it could just be something like, you see all these really cool man caves that people
Mhm.
build out in their basements or in their offices or whatever. Um, and you see the proud the how proud they are of that, and what it took to get to the that cool jersey on the wall. Like,
Mhm.
everybody has a story, right?
Yeah.
Lots of people chasing athletes and entertainers, getting that awesome autograph or collectible. It's because they have a passion. They love just to go out and do it, right? So if you're going to get into collecting, I would always say, you know get into it for something that you love. Like, if it's collecting video games, if it's collecting, anything can be technically a collectible, right? Even
Mhm.
iPhones, the old
Yeah.
iPhones are selling, like, so, it's funny how we value these things. But, my grandfather, my dad, they like to collect they love to collect tools, so, um, me, I've, sports stuff. So if you have a passion for something,
Mhm.
whether that's collecting or whatever, that's really what the catalyst is. And collecting is more about I think it's about the experience. It's so much
Mhm.
about the experience, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, if you get something that you've really worked hard to get, like whether that's saving your money or finding an athlete randomly, after a baseball game and having that baseball in your hand and getting it signed by that guy, that kind of is the instrument or the catalyst into collecting, in my opinion. Then all of a sudden you're like, man, that was such a rush. I want to do that again, and so, that's where I see that's where I see how you should get into collecting is, if you're getting into it for a business, that's one thing. But if you're getting most people that almost every single guy that I've met in this business were collectors first and not businessmen, or not looking at this as a business. It was more or less like, oh my gosh, I got, I've acquired all these signatures. What am I going to do with them? Like some of these mean something to me, some of them don't. So now I need to sell them, so I think that ultimately, when I go back to it, collecting is about passion for acquiring something that means something to you. And so, and that's really what it boils down to. Just go after what you want. If it's Pokemon, get it. If it's Mickey Mantle baseball and you want to get it and proudly display it in your house or tell your friends about it or put it away in a vault if you want,
That's a good one. Put away in the vault. And I know you've already shared a lot of your piece and in the last question, but just in case anything is still left, would you have any last few words for anyone who's starting a collection, who's a beginner collector, or who's someone who's just want to level up their collections?
Well, if you're leveling it up, obviously that means, starting at a baseline and then, acquiring more expensive pieces. That's leveling up in my opinion, right? So, or if you get lucky buying early into a guy that is going to explode, and that's always a cool part of it too, right? Is if you have this like gut feeling that, hey, if you were early in on Mike Trout, right, and you knew Mike Trout was going to be the guy, and you bought a bunch of stuff, that's a cool thing because you buy a bunch of stuff and it goes way up in value. Now you can make some serious money. That's really cool, right? So that's what a lot of collectors like to do. Like that's what the chase and the fun is about to certain people, right? So leveling up, I mean, usually leveling up means trading up higher, buying more expensive pieces, and hoping that they go up in value. And then there's the other side of it. If I was going to say anything about collecting in general, it's just more or less just have fun with it. Like just have fun with it. Form a bond with your kids, form a bond with your friends, form a bond with the community. Pretty much everybody on this planet has a passion for something, right? And sports is a big part of that, and entertainment as well. Most people, if they don't like sports, they tend to like movies, or they tend to like music. They tend to like something, and I would, everybody seems to collect something, is what I've noticed. Like there's very few people on the planet are truly that don't have they don't own anything like that means something to them. So ultimately, we all collect something, whether it's a musical instrument, whether it's fine wines and liquor, whether it's diamonds, jewels, whether it's you name it, electronics. So ultimately, if you're going to collect and you're going to level up or whatever, just love what you're collecting, love it and share your experiences with people around you and show them why you're passionate about it. And that kind of, that passion usually is attractive to a lot of people. And they're like, oh man, I need to get into that. That sounds like a good time, and next thing you know, the community grows, so.
All right. And that wraps up our session today. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you so much for your time. I know we went a little bit over than the agreed time.
That's fine, Wilson. For you, I'll do that.
Thank you so much, Michael. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you again for my. Hey, what I was going to say to you too on exiting the interview. The jerseys that you did for my men's baseball team, everybody loves. So I really appreciate that. Awesome. They turned out great. I just was really see. That's the other thing too, man. Is like that those jerseys that you sent to us, like. Just the fulfillment of my teammates of seeing those jerseys and them putting them on their backs. We're going to be wearing them every game. That means something to me, and that kind of stuff, like I'm not collecting those jerseys technically, but one day, like I'm going to, hopefully my son wants my jersey on his wall, even though it doesn't really, I'm not, some famous baseball player, but that's cool to me. Like that, that is something that I hope they collect. You know what I mean? That was significant. So you're a part of that. So I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you so much. We are honored to be part of that. We always, we'll make anything in our power that we can do. We'll definitely do it for you.
Yeah, but I'm just telling you that you did great work, and my teammates really thought they were phenomenal. So we're excited to wear them. We're excited to display them on the baseball field and represent. So
Awesome.
thank you
Yeah,
again.
Matthews jersey is on its way, so you'll probably receive it in the next day or two.
Awesome.
And that's all. Thank you so much, Michael.
All
Thank you
right.
so much for your time.